Yo, yo, yo. We the boat. The boat. Caribbean Currency, we live. We had a little technical difficulties, but we here. We in the room. Um, this is the currency rundown. New segment. Your boy, co-host Kyle, co-host Redman in the building. Special guest, Mike Love. Mike Love, large up yourself. What you
Yeah,
saying?
man. Yes, man. Yes, man. Good
Um,
evening. Good evening.
I might hear Sony name, well not her name, but you might hear her voice. You might hear Sony voice from now and again. Sony holding on the Caribbean Currency channel. So um, she gonna chime in from time to time. Don't be alarmed. Share the live, join the live. Everybody, let's give some folks a few minutes to jump in before we dive right into it. Redman, what going on?
I cooling, looking professional, typing on a laptop and thing. You know what I mean? You know what I did. Mikey, you know what I want. Yeah, what I want with a lot, you know. In the office.
When you type in
No,
www.pornhub.com.
no, no. You're typing we live now. That's why we live now.
That's the only website you know, eh?
Yeah,
Like
that's the one
this.
you know when you have a computer.
That's what I typed in, you know.
That's like two fingers.
Yeah, like this. Don't
Ah,
ask me to do nothing more, brother.
yeah. But yeah, man, the currency rundown, guys. Come in, join the live, tune in. So what really inspired this segment of Caribbean Currency is like, we don't do our normal thing where we go and we talk about issues happening in the community. We interview certain people, but we don't really talk about the current stuff. Like stuff will be happening and things will be going on, and we wouldn't really like, chime in. We might wait for the next interview to touch it, but then by the time the next interview come by is months later, so it ain't relevant no more. So we just sit there and we just go live, interview, bring some people on to talk some stuff and just get a conversation going. You know what I mean?
Right.
But we get some folks in, so it's just to start the conversation. So Red,
So
I think we
Mikey,
should.
let we just jump straight into
Yeah,
it.
I just about to say that. Let me get
Okay,
into it.
so use a every I want to say use a taxi man, but use a everything man. You know what I mean?
Mike,
You're
Mike
sing
is
your
like
own
when they call you
businesses.
the black Arab. That's the
The Black
Yeah,
definition.
Arab.
he
That's the definition
definitely
of
the
black
black
Arab.
Arab
I don't
for
like to
real.
hear the term because I feel like everybody should be hustling like that. But when the people
Ah,
home say black Arab,
ah,
that's what it's
ah.
talking about. You
That's
understand?
true.
Exactly. I
You know
feel
what I
like
mean?
that's supposed to be everybody thing, not just
Facts,
a certain,
facts,
you know what I mean? So,
facts,
Right.
but
facts, facts.
I'll take it.
No
Yeah.
man, it's a good name to be called. We know what's behind of it, but like
Hmm.
Kyle say, everybody should be thinking like Mike Love, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
one thing with Mikey gonna try something, you know what I
Try it.
mean?
Yeah.
No, I'm
You
gonna
know what I
try.
mean? So, like I say, one of the many things that you do and you've been doing it for a while is taxiing. And
Ah,
lately, there been some disruption in the community between taxiing and Ubering, as it been coming to the Virgin Islands.
ah,
And we figure we'll bring you out to have the conversation to kind of give us some insight about the taxi cab commission, what their issues are with people doing individual Uber, and what they think it might mean for them. And as far as the people who try to develop Uber in the Virgin Islands, how it could benefit the Virgin Islands, and how it might hurt the taxi cab commission. Because I mean, I know they're feeling like they're holding on to what they could hold on to. That's their revenue, and then these other things coming in and might backs them out. So
mm,
we wanted to bring you on to kind of just vibe you out and see like what your take on it is as a person in the business and as a businessman
right, right, right,
entrepreneur in the Virgin Islands.
right. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on you guys' podcast, man. I've been watching you guys elevate from the beginning to now, and
Hmm.
as you guys know, I share a lot of your content because it's needed. You know what I mean? So
Appreciate
big
that,
up
brother.
on yourself, man.
Much love.
Big up,
Much love.
guys, for
So,
sure. Um, as it relates to taxi and ride sharing, it has its pros and its cons, right?
Right.
I've been in the taxi industry for about 12 years, in the tourism industry for about 15. So I could pretty much give you a little insight on both aspects. As you guys know, I also had a ride sharing app during the pandemic,
Right.
called Pick It Up. That app
Definitely
was,
did.
yeah, that app was it was dope. It was a really great dope app. It allowed me to do ride sharing as well as food delivery, as well as laundry delivery, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, right? It got so big that I kind of had to take a step back because, the laws wasn't passed yet. Of course, it's still ain't passed. So I kind of had to take a step back before I get any kind of citations or get in trouble. But some of the pros, I would say I would do 49% pros and like 51% cons, right? Some of the
For as far as
pros,
taxiing or as far as Uber.
as far as the whole, as far as the ride sharing.
And call it
Okay.
ride share because it might not be Uber, but it may be a form of
A
ride
form
Yeah,
of
sharing, like
right.
like
as
That's
far
a
as
good
ticket or
point.
ride
call.
hailing
Yeah.
entails, I would say 49-51, and I would only say 49-51 because, as you guys know, tourism is our only industry, right?
Mhm.
And the island is so small, you know what I mean? Red,
Right.
you can imagine, okay, could you imagine at anyway, we didn't get it. But I
Hey,
want to say something, but me know if
hey,
you
Go
want to
there.
hey,
ask it, I
hey,
There's
could.
the
no, no, no,
place.
no.
There's
No,
the
he
Um,
place
grew
to
up,
go
he
there.
grew up,
but
he grew up.
let me give you out some of the
Uncle
pros,
grew
right?
up.
The pros, some of the pros are, of course, giving locals an opportunity to earn extra income, right?
Hmm.
Um, and they'll be flexible too, as far as working. They could work whenever they want. They could punch in and punch out however they please, as well as we allow transportation 24 hours a day. Well, I would hope that when ride sharing do come, or if it comes, that it would allow us to have the app open 24 hours a day. Um, and also with the food delivery, it allows the local restaurant to gain more revenue, right? And not only gain more revenue, but also on the app, it also will be able to market whatever restaurant to, so that's another means of marketing that
Right.
restaurant as well. um so those are some of the pros, and some of the cons.
We know about the pro. We know like the pros. Everybody that been to the States know the benefits of ride sharing. So we understand. Like we ain't gonna spend $100 or $90 to go from the airport to
Well,
friggin'.
that's
Mhm.
well, again, to some of the cons.
Let's talk about the cons. That's what I
Okay,
want.
the cons. um as we all know, in St. Thomas, everything is expensive, right?
Hmm.
Right.
To the point where alcohol cheaper than milk. So in the morning, I don't even use milk for cornflakes. No, I don't use rum. It's
You know, use
cheaper, right?
you know, use Crucian.
I don't use Cruiser.
Hey,
I don't use
hey, that
Cruiser.
jingle
But
you do
no,
wicked, my boy. That is
give
next
thanks, man.
level,
Give
dog.
thanks, man. Give thanks,
Next
man.
level.
Give thanks. But as we all know, everything on the island is expensive. So we have to factor in certain things, right? Like costs or living, costs of gas. So the price, don't think that if a ride sharing
Yes.
company come to St. Thomas, that you're gonna be paying
Why you play in
$15 to
Atlanta?
go from
Nah,
here,
nah.
from airport to Red Hook. You know what I mean? Don't think
Right.
for a second that it's gonna be the same price, right? So again, factoring in the cost of living, the gas is gonna be expensive. The price of ride sharing is gonna be expensive, very, 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 very expensive. I
Right.
feel. Um, I saw a article where the commissioner or the director of Taxi Cab Commission wanted to put ride sharing under the taxi commission. I have my feelings towards, because I have my reasons.
Tell me what you think then I good idea.
We need to decide whether we're gonna use a regular mom or pop to do ride sharing,
right,
or we're gonna use taxi drivers for ride sharing. That's what we're talking about first of all. If we're gonna use taxi drivers for ride sharing, then of course we could put that under the taxi cab commission. But if we are using a regular person, mom or pop, to do ride sharing, I wouldn't put it under the taxi cab commission, because what would happen is anybody who's operating a vehicle for hire according to the laws of the Virgin Islands
need a license, right?
They need to have a license, right?
A chauffeur's license, not just a regular driver's license, correct?
Yeah, a taxi license or a chauffeur license, correct?
Yeah,
they would need to have. So that would be one of the cons, right? Having everybody to apply for this taxi or this chauffeur license, in order to hire to drive for.
Don't they have a pause on those? Didn't they like stop giving them out for a while?
Yeah, they stopped giving out taxi license, but they're still giving out chauffeur meaning limousines, tour license. But that would be, I think that would have to be under its own name. I don't think it'll be under or should be under taxi. I don't think it should be under either. It should have a lane on its own. But if they do put it under taxi, I think we should do it with just taxi drivers, mainly the drivers who are not in a concession. I don't know if you guys understand what I mean.
Like a taxi association.
Explain it to me.
Okay, so a concession or taxi association is pretty much like let's use a gang, right? Let's use a street gang, for better, terminologies. So a taxi association is like housing, right?
Right.
Only whoever the big man is for housing, who run the black in housing, he is the one that could tell you join, that you are you're a member, right? Only that person could tell that. It could be one person or it could be a conglomerate of people, a board, a vice president, a president, a treasurer, a board, right? So that group of people are in control of a certain area on the island based on a bid, whether you bid on it or whether you have a contract with, let's say, a hotel, Westin or or whatever. You have a contract. So that board or those people or that person is the one to say, okay, cool, you could come into my organization. However, you have to pay monthly dues in order to join that association, that gang, that clique. The benefit for taxi drivers for that gang or that clique is, let's say, for instance, the cruise ship dock. Any cruise ship that comes in, of course, once you're in that clique, that clique is the only clique that could get jobs off of that cruise, the cruise ship ports. Same thing as for a hotel. Just that clique alone could get jobs from that hotel, or the beach, or wherever location that gang has a contract or holds, right? And then there's taxi drivers, legal drivers that actually have a license that's not a part of any gang, any organization.
So where they could pick up? Where they could pick up if they can't go to the certain docks, they can't go to certain beaches?
They would have what we would call a spillover, overflow. So let's say I'm at the cruise ship dock and a party of 12 come and I asked them, hey, do you guys need a taxi? And they said, no, we're gonna walk around for a minute. And they pass the gang. Then they will go to the regular taxi drivers that's out. They have to be 100 feet away from a taxi stand.
That's some youngster shit, bro.
right?
So, hey, let me ask you a question real quick. Is that a kind of like Atlanta airport? Because Ubers don't normally pick you up by the door. Taxi drivers do.
I
But
think
you, if
Exactly.
that's the kind of Uber, you got like walk
what.
down
But
and get to
it's
the
Exactly.
only
Uber
recently
section.
that Uber was allowed even in the airport. A couple years ago, when Uber
Yeah.
had
Right,
just started, they couldn't pick up in the airport at all. You check?
right,
They could have
right,
dropped off, but they couldn't pick up. You check?
right,
So I
right.
don't know if we lose Mike. We lose Mike.
It looked like we lose Mike.
So I go while Mike coming back in, I gonna just I speak to one of my partner them that's in the know
Yeah.
of what all of this stuff here, and
Oh,
he
he's
was
back.
telling me
He's gone.
he's gone again.
Yeah.
He was he was
He's
telling,
back.
okay, Mike, you're back.
Yeah. I don't know what happened
Okay,
there.
so
But yeah, it's
I,
a it's just like what you say, Redman. The taxis are stationed by the airport while the Uber drivers or the Lyft drivers are stationed elsewhere, and you could only pull up to the consumer when they call for a ride. You
Right.
can't just solicit or wait where the taxi drivers are to for a fare. That's
Right.
illegal. At least in St. Thomas, I don't know the laws in Atlanta, but in St. Thomas, it's illegal for you to solicit where a taxi stand is. You have to be 100 feet away from a taxi stand in order for you to have to get passengers. If you
Okay.
so
are if you're not a part of that association, or if you are a taxi driver that's not affiliated with
You
any
did with
taxi.
that. Okay. And now, do
okay, let me
they
ask
do
you.
that? Go ahead, Ty.
No,
Sorry.
no, no,
Go
Red,
ahead.
go, Dad.
No, do they do that to protect themselves so other people don't tap into the business? Or what's the
As far
reason for
as
them to
as far as what, Uber, or as far as the other taxi drivers that's not a part of the organization?
board? Board.
Well, for we pay dues, right? So
Mhm.
every month we pay the the gang leaders or the board. We pay
Right.
them monthly. So it's unfair for somebody who, and a regular driver, to just come in and load up their vehicle with passengers, um and they're not paying any dues, versus the drivers who pay X amount of money a month and not getting any jobs, right? So that's one of the reasons.
But
Um,
then they have a monopoly on a little space right there by baggage claim. That's theirs then. That's between them and the airport. Um, Port
That's,
Authority
that's
agreed
VA
that they should
taxi,
have
right?
this space.
yeah, that's VI taxi. So they have a contract with Port Authority to transport passengers from the airport elsewhere. So I can't go in there because I don't work for VI Taxi Association. So I
Right.
can't go at the airport and solicit.
Okay.
However, if you, Kyle or Redman, call me from the States and be like, yo, Mike, I coming into St. Thomas, I need a ride. I could go to the airport then and pick you up, because it's called a prearrange or a
Mm.
prepaid. So I could do that. But I can't just be by the airport, with a sign that say, hey, anybody need a taxi, look for me.
So
That's illegal.
so then somebody walking off the plane with a Uber app, or not Uber, let's call it again, like what
Right,
a
sharing.
That
ride sharing
right,
app.
sure.
That could be considered prearranged if we,
Exactly.
right? And
That
so
could
they
be
should be able to
considered
pick up
prearranged.
on, right.
That could be considered prearranged. If you take a ride sharing app, right, and you have a conglomerate of drivers, like licensed taxi drivers, I think that you could actually go ahead and do right, like actually put together an app right now and branch it out, because that would be considered as a digital um concession,
Right.
Well, let me say this.
right?
No,
Instead of physical, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Kai, my bad.
no, if they do what it is you say, Mikey, then it's just pretty much taking the taxi drivers or the taxi van and putting them, giving them an app. I think the bigger issue is the whole system. As far as, let me tell you a story. One time I tried years
Mhm.
ago. I come out to get those, right. My car was done, and I needed a ride to Beachcomber Hotel, if I remember Beachcomber. I don't know if I
Yeah,
remember.
Emerald Beach,
I need a
yeah.
ride Beachcomber Hotel, right? So I come out and I say, I call the hotline and I say, good night. I need a taxi from Piercing Garden to Beachcomber. I hear the dispatch man say, Piercing Garden, Beachcomber, anybody?
Hang
Cricket.
up.
They hang
No
up.
driver
They hang up on your
available.
boy, you know.
Yeah.
My partner as a taxi man call me and say, the man, you're stupid. Don't tell
You
them no
see,
Piercing Garden, nobody go in Piercing Garden. Tell them
let
your
me
Wendy's.
explain. Let me
But let me tell
explain
you
to
what, real
you
quick, let me
why.
finish. So I call back right away, though. Hey, yeah, and this is how I'm talking now. Hey, can I get a taxi from what's this, Wendy's in Long Bay? Yeah, to the Beachcomber Hotel. Wendy's to Beachcomber, 1056 in route. Them man were there in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. The man I look so confused and my black ass jump in the van like, yeah, good night. I go in Beachcomber. You check? So I say all of that to say now. So when you do that, when you take it from a taxi association and just say, okay, taxi association, now we give you an app that's an extension of your taxi association. What changes? Like I don't see the big change. Like you said, I don't see the price.
As far as that ain't much of a change, it would just take money out of the guys at the airport's pocket. Okay. But taxi drivers would still benefit, right?
Yeah.
But to piggyback on what you say, what the reason why me personally I don't pick up, it don't really matter. And that's why you know I reach so far in the transportation business because I'm gonna tell you a story. I was actually right there by Yard Haven Grand. There was 5 ships in port, and this one guy hunting down everybody for a taxi. Nobody want to pick him up because it's one guy. They ain't got no money in it. They got 4 or 5 ships in port. So I see him in distress. And I stop. I say, you know, where you want to go? I want to go to the airport. I say, happen. I'll take you to the airport. Take the man to the airport. And we pick up 10 people in his family from the airport, take them back to Yard Haven. The man gave me $500. I said, what?
Wow.
He said, Mike, could you pick me and my wife up tonight? We're gonna go to the restaurant at the Marriott. I picked that man up from Yard Haven because he had a yacht in Yard Haven. Man stink of money. But nobody don't know because he have on khaki shorts, a white t-shirt, and some flip-flops, right? So he called me, he said, Mike, I want you to pick me and my wife up. We're gonna go to the Marriott. From the Yard Haven to the Marriott, he gave me $100. From Marriott back to Yard Haven, he gave me $100. I said, what? The following day, he said, Mike, I want you to take me and my wife around. We're going to do some, you know, check out some real estate. I kid you not. This was 6 years ago. Up to present, them man own 6 catamarans and 5 villas. And you know what they say? Mike, we don't want anybody transporting our passengers besides you. And that's just because of that one time I pick him up at Yard Haven when all them other drivers refuse him. So I only say that to say
I had on baggy pants and Air Force Ones with the laces out. You know, they used to slap inside like that. And they had them strap inside it. And they look like that kind of money. So that man pass my ship and scotch straight.
But I don't discriminate.
But that's applaudable, though. Applaudable, bro. That's applaudable.
Right? I picking up anybody, but I forgot the point I was making prior to that.
But why you think about that, right? Let me ask you this. So another thing in the VA is taxi medallions, right? Taxi medallions cost a lot of money. Some of them selling for 30, 40, 50, them type of numbers. You can't taxi in the VA unless you have a medallion, right?
Correct, but that's not just the VI. That's anywhere in the world.
Okay.
That's anywhere in the world. If you go to New York, a taxi medallion in New York is twice the price of the medallion in St. Thomas.
You're right. So what we're getting to, I was gonna say, Uber and them type of any ride sharing app is going to devalue the taxi medallions. It happened in New York. Taxi medallions used to sell in New York for 800 to 1 point something mil. Tell me.
We need to differentiate who we giving the ride sharing to. If we giving the ride sharing to a regular, person, then it would definitely devalue the medallion, right?
Exactly.
Right.
To the point.
But isn't that the market though? Is that not the
VI,
competitive market?
Yeah, if I hear ride sharing coming to the VI, I sell in my medallion. Really and truly. Yeah.
No, go ahead,
if
Mike.
ride sharing comes to the VI and is a regular portion of a mom or pop driving, the value of the medallion will depreciate tremendously.
So the reason I brought that up, right, is because a lot of the audience, a lot of folks, a lot of board members, they really can't understand why Uber ain't happening yet. But it's so much different moving parts in this thing, right?
It's a lot of parts. And not only that, the powers that be is a lot of money in this taxi. Not just taxi, but transportation.
Transportation, yes.
Limousine,
yes.
Jeep tours.
Yeah.
Water taxis.
Mm-hmm.
The list goes on and on. So ain't just a taxi driver. It have a list of transportation services that could get sliced in half if Uber come. It would be amazing and it would be dope if we have ride sharing. It would be. I feel it would be dope because after 5 there's really no taxis around.
Facts.
Right.
And the reason of that being too is because taxi drivers take cash. A lot of drivers I probably the only, me alongside like 4 other drivers is probably the only drivers on the island that accept debit or credit card. Everybody else will do cash. So a lot of the drivers after 6 or when it gets dark, they don't want to be going in housing or ghettos to pick up nobody.
Or ghettos to pick up nobody to take them beach home.
Like say Bavoni, we have paint on the side of our buildings. We have paint on the side of our buildings. We have like palm trees. Just say like Bavoni. Ghettos is a more well-established community now, and there's great people living in there. So I don't want you to kind of like make us sound like some forbidden area.
Any place that locals reside. Any place that hey, we need a taxi in Arnold's Retreat. Once you hear taxi in a local area, after 6, a lot of drivers not gonna go because we don't know if we're gonna set up, right? And it happened many times in the past. You know how much taxi drivers got robbed and killed because they, you know what I mean? They went into a local, so that's why a lot.
Hey, I want to ask Mike if you can hear me because I heard you say earlier you did have a ride share. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah,
you can hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So I was saying like that's why a lot of the drivers stop
operating
after 6. No, how we could balance it, because life is all about balance, right? Duality. How we could probably balance this.
Sony, text your question and I read it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, how we could probably balance this is if we do ride sharing after 5.
Okay. Ride sharing after 5.
That way you won't cut into taxi drivers, because usually ships leave after like 5. Ships leave at 5. So you won't cut into the drivers or the mafia. That's what we call the old taxi cab conglomerate, the mafia. You won't get cut into the mafia's pockets.
So you know what? Let me say this to you, Mike. When it comes to WAPA, we'd ask for more vendors. They could do one or two things. Either WAPA step their game up or they drive WAPA out. So I you know me, my boy, as a capitalist. So I for ride sharing because it's either going to make the taxi drivers step their game up, get more modernized and more efficient. Because like when you say right now, they like the mafia. They do what they want, how they want, because they have control of the market. So I'm open to in the market to other vendors, which would be like a ride share or something of the sorts, so that we could drive the taxi cabs to do better and be more efficient and not be so selective about who they're dealing with.
Again, it's not just the taxi cabs.
Right.
This thing stretch far out than just taxi cabs. So the powers that be, may not want to move forward with it because of the whole aspect of transportation on the island, not just taxi cabs.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's the fight. That's right now, today as it stands, that's the fight. To be able to come to a balance of, okay, I'm pretty sure if a ride sharing comes to the Virgin Islands, the mafia gonna want some type of eat off of it, right? Some type of percentage off of it. Because they ain't gonna leave it go just like that. It's big, it's huge. Water taxi, Jeep tours, limousine, taxis, safaris, you know, even the dollar man them, even the dollar boss man them.
Let me ask this one question before we let you go, because
even the Vitran buses.
Right, let me ask this one question to you.
Yeah, you're right.
Before we let you go, because you know we press for time and we have other guests. You know, it's kind of like CNN now. You know, we are 20 minutes. You're really professional with this thing, my boy. You know,
you see my boy got a computer and a ring light.
I got a computer and a ring light. Stop playing with me. Okay, no, this question is from Sony. Sony says, since you previously had a ride share, how profitable was it in the VI? I see this market becoming oversaturated on a small island. What do you think about the taxi association? Wait, so this is 1,000 questions. What do you think about taxi association just modernizing, creating an app, allowing drivers to rent under the medallion to provide services that dedicated taxi drivers are limited to doing?
Okay, give me the first question.
Okay, she wants to know how profitable was it in the VI when you did your
ride sharing, pick it up, which is still active. All I have to do is press a button and it's back active again.
That's a disclaimer, you know. Do the right thing, I pick it up, coming back.
Okay then.
No, but it was very profitable. As far as restaurants, a lot of restaurants was skeptic of coming on board because there was an app prior. Right.
Just to clarify, it was more so food delivery than actual picking up people and moving them around, right? You did both?
It did both. However, it was bigger for food.
For food, it was bigger for food.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, damn. Okay, look like you lose Mike again.
We lost Mike.
But we get people.
You can hear me though, right?
Yeah,
we
can hear you.
Jump back in.
Here we go.
Finish up and then
I can hear me now.
Yes.
Yeah. So just close out, Mike. How we gotta go? So just close out. Give us your last little spew.
Okay.
What you think the way forward is?
So the ride sharing is very profitable. Very, very, very profitable. Food delivery is also very, very profitable. We just have to come to a common grounds as it relates to taxi drivers and the ride sharing. You can't just put somebody under your medallion. They have to go through a series of tests in order to be have a license for taxi. So you have to take a test. So you can't just put somebody under your medallion. It's a process. So we have to decide if we're going to use ride sharing for taxi drivers or ride sharing for the regular civilian. If we're going to do a regular civilian, I think for right now, to ease it in, do it after hours, after 5 o'clock, from 5 until 6 in the morning. All right.
Yeah.
Just to ease it in, see how we work, and then piece by piece, you know,
and then force them out after.
Either way, it don't matter to me because I could press a button here or I could.
Hey, you good on either side.
I go on either side.
You, my boy in the middle, Switzerland. I tell you. But hey, Mike, we appreciate your time, man, brother.
Anytime,
some other people in the waiting room. Much love. You give us a lot of insight, a lot of things we didn't know about, a lot of things we didn't consider.
Definitely,
so we really appreciate you know what I mean, your expertise in this arena, brother. and I wish you nothing but success. Keep killing it, keep trying, keep doing your thing, keep testing out new things. When people say, "Where the fuck, Mikey? He's a cook now? Oh, he's selling ice cream? Oh, he's a taxi?" Yes, mother scunt. Yes, mother scunt. Yes, mother scunt. We's everything. All right,
exactly.
Proud of you, bro, and we gonna link up. All right. Yes,
and we're gonna start calling the Arab them the Black Mikey, you know.
The Black Mikey, I like that. The Arab Mikey, that's what it is. The Arab Mikey.
The Arab Mikey, I don't know.
Yeah.
I like
Easy Mikey.
Love alone, man, love.
Yes, right, bless.
All right, Shoni, take us away.
Okay. Yeah, so our next guest we have Kye Walker. So she's an attorney, and we're going to be talking about with her how, what is it with
it's
trafficking. That's
the
word
I know them girl.
Trafficking.
Yes,
how to stay out of trouble. If you want to find,
you could go jail.
If you're flying or boating a girl, how it affects you. Yeah.
So that means I've been sex trafficked before, like somebody fly me in.
And if you
I've been sex trafficked.
For me, I feel like only if you make it a mental thing, like you start brainwashing them or
No, I mean me when they fly me in, they sex traffic me when they fly
when you get flew out.
Yeah,
you're a victim,
definitely. Okay, let's bring in Kye because she's been waiting for some time. So let's bring her in. Hi, Kye.
What's up, Kye?
You're gonna bring some clarification to the table for us.
So Redman
lawyer. Before you say anything, I just want you to know that the only time I have spoken to a lawyer is when I was in court. So it's an honor to have you here and speak to you without fear of going to jail. Okay? And I'm really happy that my mother would be proud. Okay?
So the topic tonight is whether you have ever been sex trafficked?
No. It's something similar, but just what sex trafficking, especially as with all the stuff that's going on with Diddy, and people having these questions about, because now it's like, okay, wait, you can't fly a girl out no more. You like her, hey, come spend a night on a tongue in Atlanta. You want to eat some tuk. Like, I mean, have a good time. Mm-hmm. That's sex trafficking now. Like, so we need some clarification before we buy these tickets come December.
Well, if you trick her. So if you trick her, if you lie to her, if you intimidate her, if you do anything to coerce her, then it's sex trafficking.
Okay.
So there has to be some sort of level of fraud or some level of force, physical threats, something like that has to be involved. Right? Because, not everyone is honest when they're dealing with these types of relationships. So it can't be just any lie. There has to be a certain level of coercion involved.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So, well, I haven't coerced anyone, so I'm fine.
Have you been coerced, Red?
I have been coerced. Yeah, I have been coerced, but I'm not pressing any charges. I think it was a misunderstanding. You know what I mean? They didn't give me any money. So I don't think it constitutes as prostitution. So, I feel like, that's a misunderstanding. Let's leave it at that.
A misunderstanding is fair. That's fair, right? So I thought that was an interesting topic that you guys asked me to speak on. You went from ride shares to sex trafficking, and I'm trying to figure out what's the connection between.
Man, listen. Boy,
Kye,
just random like that.
I'm a snitch right now.
He's such a rat.
Yeah, a star witness.
He's such a rat. Hey, I can't do nothing. You see how he telling Nikki? You see how he does out here telling? Yo. But see, really and truly, that's something that's I always wanted clarification. Because especially with the whole Diddy thing, we just getting bits and pieces of it. We ain't really too sure, like, we hearing the baby oil. We hearing that type of thing. We just want to know.
Those allegations are extreme, though. I mean, are you concerned that you or someone may have been involved in Diddy-like behavior?
No, wait. Time out.
Exactly. That's clear. Where was disclaimer? Give that disclaimer.
Let's no.
This ain't about us.
After that, if anybody's listening to the live, no. But we do have a lot of entertainer friends, and I manage artists, and we're around a lot of artists that are entertainers and people who are affluent. Those guys meet people in a DM and stuff like that. And stuff kick off, you fly a girl out. So hearing that the news was so vague, we were like, oh look, we need to get a lawyer in for clarification before December come, because we want to go say, you might bring a girl in, I don't know. Like we got to make sure we following the letter of the law. And then not only that, stuff that's coming up with Diddy is so vague for us, and we don't understand lawyer talk. We figure instead of just either donging, because like me and Starry that talk about Star Watley that talk about this all the time. I haven't said anything about Diddy. One time I said something about R. Kelly, and she was like, "Listen, man, whether he right or wrong, we just can't be the people that just be tearing black man down. Let them other people tear him down." So I haven't said anything since then. And I don't know enough to say anything. It's just our accusations. I don't want to help spread the propaganda. So I said, you know what? Let's bring Kye on. Kye said, hey, you know what? We have questions. Let's bring Kye Walker on and let her answer some of these questions about the allegations and where it stands and how to look at it and, and what's outrageous and what's reality for the public.
I mean, that's fair, right? So when you're talking about the charges against Sean Combs, those are extreme allegations, but those are also extreme allegations that come after years and years and years of people talking about how he allegedly did these things. So that's a very extreme case. And the likelihood of anyone facing allegations like that is slim. You're talking about Sean Diddy, you're talking about Epstein, that's like a high level of sex trafficking. But there's smaller things, sex trafficking involves some level of transport, and it involves some level of coercion. It involves some level of physical force. And I think when you are engaged in certain behavior that involves sex that may seem a little questionable, you always want to err on the side of caution.
I use cocoa butter, by the way. I don't have baby oil. I use cocoa butter.
Right. Good. So if you're, cool. A typical case would be if you're a college student, you're young, you just get to college, you're becoming familiar with other women, guys, whatever. You didn't have a whole lot of experience. You find yourself in a situation that might involve liquor. Next thing you know, someone's accusing you of raping them, right? And rape is somewhat subjective. So you always, when you're talking to your friends, when you're talking to your children, you always want to err in the side of caution. If it seems like it could be a problem, it's not worth it. Right. So I haven't heard of anyone saying sex was so good it was worth going to jail for. So it's just not worth it. Right. Sex trafficking, now you if you're doing it, you're doing it. It's not like not like an accident. If you meet a girl online, you guys want to hook up and you fly her out, as long as you didn't coerce her, maybe you told her I love you. I don't think that rises to the level of coercion. Okay, but if you're saying,
man, be telling them, yo, you love me.
Yeah, but
I do. I love all of it.
So if you're saying to her, oh, there's a job here in Atlanta, I can help you kick off your modeling career, and next thing you know, she flies to Atlanta. You kidnap her, you're trading her, to other people, or trading her for money, or trading her for things, then that's definitely coercion. And that's something you want to stay away from. And then you also have to remember that there's always two sides to the story. There's always the facts, and there's always what people can allege. So you just need to be careful, especially if you're in that type of sports industry or entertainment industry. So I hope that answers your question.
It did. But one little tidbit. So if I tell her I'm going to buy a Birkin, but the Birkin is knockoff, is that coercion?
If I represented you, you wouldn't go to jail for that. I don't think anyone's going to charge you for lying about a bag. But if you tell her I have this bag and she comes there and then you kidnap her and you pimp her out, then that's then you have an issue.
I ain't buying nothing. I just want to know about lunch. You could get lunch.
She could get lunch.
Yeah, you could get lunch.
None of the car declaring that she can't get no lunch. When she's sex trafficking.
My auntie going to cook.
So this was a major question that was plaguing you?
Playing it
No,
up?
you keep
Like,
saying me, the general public.
I mean, the general public. This was a major question that was plaguing.
major.
Yeah.
People
In the
flight get
group
cancelled,
chats.
Key.
Hmm.
Oh my
People
God,
cancel the
Charlie
boat
Moore.
ferry and thing. Like, no,
Oh
sir,
my
we can't do this no
God.
more. You see, they picking up people
Yeah.
for flying them out and flying them in
Yeah.
for sex.
You gotta be careful.
Yeah.
And then,
have
you
to be
know,
careful.
it's not just criminal charges you're facing, you're also facing civil charges.
Oh.
Because
Yeah.
the victims can sue you, the attorney general can sue you.
Right.
You know, it's a big deal. And you know, it's unfortunate though, because you know, you're talking about Diddy, but there's like other notorious alleged, like Epstein. Diddy has nothing on Epstein, right?
Facts.
If
No.
allegations against Diddy are true, he still has nothing on Epstein, right? So people aren't really talking about that. You know, people talk about Cosby, people talk about Diddy. So I understand what your friend is saying, where it seems like Black men get targeted and they're brought down for this.
Right.
But then the first thing you learn as a Black person when you're achieving levels of success is that the playing field is different.
Yes.
So someone can get away with something, but you can't. So you have to be even more cautious there.
True.
Okay.
So,
True.
And I don't want to stray away from the topic a little bit, but I know our audience has never met you. There's some people that met you. Can you just give us a little bit about Kye Walker Esquire?
Kye
Walker.
Walker.
Kye Walker Esquire.
a little bit about Kye Walker Esquire. Besides the obvious that I'm an attorney. So I practice criminal defense. I practice civil litigation, family law. I have my own practice. I have a staff here. I've been a lawyer since I was 23. So I've been a
25.
lawyer. Yes.
The
I've been a
alley-oop.
lawyer here for over 20 years. I love what I do. I love helping people. I love solving problems. I love assisting people with their situations. Criminal defense is my passion. I believe I'm successful at it. All of my clients are innocent, which is what I always say. If I represented Diddy, he would be innocent as well. So that's my mantra. So that's who I am.
Okay, so let me ask this question now. There seems to be a lopsided. Talk to us about justice in the Virgin Islands. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah, because it just seems either cases are taking too long to come. So I had a friend that went to jail for murder, right? And it's like they had him in jail for 6 years to then say, okay, yeah, we can get nothing on you. So basically, it's like you make him do the time. You get 6 years out of him. Because you know he might have been a little troublesome on the street. Your name kind of ringing bell, but you don't have a case on him. No, you made him. He sits 6 years in jail for you to then say, oh yeah, we don't have nothing. Like it just seemed like in some cases, if not many cases, that the justice system just ain't justice in balanced wise as we would like.
It's not fair. So there's a backlog of cases, especially in the local court, which is made even worse since COVID, because then there was a 2-year delay for cases going to trial. Right. When you're in that situation, you really need to have an aggressive lawyer who will continue to argue for you to be released. So what happens in my cases a lot, and I can only speak for myself, is that the case begins, I do my work, I'm ready to go to trial as soon as possible, but the government keeps asking for continuances. And when the government keeps asking for continuances, that's when you have to keep fighting for the release of your client. And under the law, everyone is entitled to bail. There should be some sort of conditions that you receive that allow you to be released so you can continue to provide for your family, you can continue to be in the community, you can meet with your lawyer, prepare for your defense. Sometimes when someone is sitting in jail that long, they're either extremely notorious or their attorney hasn't pushed aggressively enough for them to be released. It hasn't pushed aggressively enough at every opportunity to have them released. So that does happen, and it is unfortunate, and you can't get compensated for it. You could lose 6 years of your life and have a not guilty verdict, or you could lose 6 years of your life and have your case dismissed. So I agree. I agree it's unfair, and I think there should be some sort of compensation for it, but there isn't.
How do we rectify this backlog issue, if you don't mind?
I think one, it appears that we either need more judges or we need judges who are only assigned criminal cases, and that the criminal cases are moving like that. A lot of times what happens is the case gets dismissed right before trial or on the day before trial, because there's some prosecutors who don't prepare for trial until the eve of trial and realize they don't have the witness, they don't have the evidence, and next thing you know, there's a dismissal. So I think there needs to be some standard put in place. But most importantly, we need a Speedy Trial Act. Believe it or not, the Speedy Trial Act technically does not apply to us.
Really?
So really, not all of the constitutional laws apply to us, and the speedy trial is one that doesn't apply to us. Now, you can file a motion and say your trial is taking too long, but the Speedy Trial Act doesn't necessarily apply. So we would need the legislature to pass a Speedy Trial Act.
Why would something like that be not like I would like who would vote against not having a Speedy Trial Act? Like who would support not having
Was that something that was even voted on before?
It's something that's been discussed. It's something that's been brought up, but we don't have one. So we don't have the same speedy trial rights that you would have in the federal system.
For those of us who've never had any run-in with the law, like our co-hosts and counterparts, can you let us know what a speedy trial is?
A speedy trial requires that you go to trial within a certain amount of days. And if there's going to be a delay or a continuance, it must meet certain requirements, and the continuance may only be granted in the interest of justice. So the government saying, oh, our police officer witness is unavailable. No. The government saying, oh, I have other trials to do. No. There needs to, the speedy trial needs to be enacted, and then it needs to be enforced, and that will assist. And sometimes, the government charges too soon. They charge a case and then they investigate it. And if you're when you charge someone with a crime, you need to be ready to take them to trial the following week. That's my position. If you're going to disrupt my life and charge me with a crime, then you need to be ready to go to trial tomorrow. We can't be down 2 years down the road and you're telling the judge, I'm not ready to go to trial. You're still building
a case. So how you have enough to arrest me, but you don't have enough to convict me? You know what I mean? Like that makes
the
sense.
probable cause standard for arrest is low. So, and that's the problem. So sometimes there's times where, cases are charged and they never really had the evidence to go all the way to trial.
Gotcha. Well, Kye, we know you're a really, really busy lady. Me and Redman have something we need to talk to you about offline, on a separate issue. For real.
I don't like one of the song. Wait, time out.
I smell a retainer coming. I feel as if there's a retainer in my near future.
It's more community work than anything. It's not about me or him. I promise you.
Always sounded like on behalf of me.
We about to start and go fund me to keep Red out of jail. I'm joking.
In Redman's defense, I feel like he's been targeted tonight. So I just want to say I have your back. I feel like you've been a target. I don't feel like you are guilty of what you're being accused of. So I'm here for you.
Not.
But thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you so much for being here, Kye. Like, this was amazing. It was a real good conversation. We hope to see more of you and more pop-ups like this, man. But I know you're super, super busy, so we're going to let you run. Thanks again, Kye. And we're going to talk to you soon, okay?
Have a good night.
Thank you, Kye.
Bye.
All right. So, that was a really good conversation. This feel like speed dating. I ever do speed dating before?
No.
Redman, the key thing is just practice abstinence, so I don't have to come bail you out of jail. You don't have to worry about
what's
right and what's wrong. You don't have to second guess nothing.
That was 20 years ago. I'm rehabilitated. I'm a respectable man in the community. Yeah. Wow. So what do you? Okay. You take me out the middle. I don't want to be in the middle.
This is why I don't stay in the corner.
Take me out the middle.
Yes.
Man. Okay. So next up. We're running a little behind, so we're gonna keep this party rolling. We're gonna keep it rolling. We're gonna keep it going. We're gonna keep it moving. So we're even gonna take long. Our favorite Frenchie, St. Thomas native, Virgin Islands own, Gabrielle Querrard. She's someplace. Where she at? Sony, she
Yep,
here?
here she comes. Hi,
Hey, my
Gabby.
favorite Frenchie.
When
Glad
you
you
say
joined
favorite
us.
Frenchie, Todd going to feel some type of way, you know. Like you,
Uh-oh.
Damn.
Todd, you're
Todd
watching
technically
music.
is
You
a Frenchie
can't.
for real.
Yeah, you can't. I'd call him the blackest white boy in the world. You jerk.
Yeah.
I
We got
don't.
coin. He's something else, man.
Yeah.
Frenchie is a little
Todd
too.
is the official male Frenchie of the podcast.
Right.
There you go. We have two spaces, one for a male and one for a female. There you go.
Exactly.
That
Sony
was
for the
real
win again.
DEI. That was real DEI.
Gabby, what's up, girl? How are you?
Hey, you guys can hear me? I pull up my mic for you guys.
Yeah,
Yes,
we
we can hear you.
definitely hear you. And I appreciate you pulling up the mic and looking real professional about it. You know what I mean?
Redman pull out the computer.
I
Oh,
get
yeah,
it.
he said Redman have the ring light, and so I was like, oh wow, okay, I gotta get them. After he said he have the ring light, I was like, oh okay, let me pull out a mic.
Yeah, you got
this
me
is
right.
a professional situation, but I'm doing well. I'm really happy to be here.
Good to see you again, Gabby.
I know, I'm super excited.
Right.
Gabby's a big friend of the show, and you know she's a familiar face at the show, and she's super busy. So we appreciate her for even stopping and saying, making the time. Cause first she was like, Kyle, I don't have time. How am I gonna do this? And I was like, but the conversation was so important. Yeah. I talking about assistants and things. No.
Yeah.
I joking.
I'm in the middle of releasing Caribbean Mystics, so it takes up a lot of my time.
We know how that is.
Trust me. We got it. Right. And if you haven't subscribed to Caribbean Mystics, please go subscribe to Caribbean Mystics. Check it out. And Caribbean Currency.
Yeah, it puts me to sleep. Not that it isn't good, but I just like to hear you and the other hosts talk.
It's so soothing.
It's soothing. You know what I mean? So I'd just put it on and I'd just cool out and it'll help me calm down and go sleep.
Okay, so Redman, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but what's your favorite story?
The call full lady one. No, it have another one. It have another one with I forget this one. It's probably like the first early one, and not witches, and it's a spirit one, man. What I gotta go back in my pod. Yeah, the one. But I gotta go back in my podcasting to see the name.
Okay.
Well, I only have two, you know. Us and you.
Let me know if you got a person garden story. It gotta be hunting. And it gotta be true.
We have a Mr. Young Appealy story.
Oh gosh, this sounds stressful.
Yeah, but we're gonna talk about it right now. I'm gonna give you the wrong. Not Mr. Young Appealy.
Do research on Mr. Young Appealy. Oh my gosh, you said that bring back so much memories.
Mr. Young Appealy like Jason. When you look back, he close. Run again.
Close. For a man called that could barely walk.
Okay, we gonna have to talk about
how you get here so quick. So yeah, but nonetheless, so we're gonna touch base, man. We really want to have this conversation. We've been having some issues in the community where we haven't been doing the best job at protecting our kids, our young kids,
young
predators, young adults, and everyone.
So let's call them minors.
Minors. There you go. Yeah, minors from the predators in the community. So the predators, when we lock one up, 5 more pop up. So the conversation, I think, and this is a real, slippery slope, but the conversation needs to be had where what can we do more of to help our kids navigate in this world that is occupied with predators. Because we can't lock up all of it. And when we lock up one, more pop up. So that's why we say let's bring in Gabby, get her perspective. Sony, she has daughters too. Redman has daughters. I have sons. Just to figure out what it is we could be doing as a community.
And you're an educator, so you're in close contact with kids and you know what I mean, like stuff like that. So you have a understanding of what we're facing. Mm-hmm. And I would love your perspective, by the way. So.
Well, I'll say I came here with statistics because I feel like one of the parts of this is I feel like it's really misunderstood in our community. The prevalence of sexual abuse and the fact that there is limited data, right? And so, for instance, Kids Count, which is a wonderful organization that takes an aggregate of statistics and numbers, right, for a whole bunch of different stuff, but they put it together and they post it online. And Kids Count came out with the numbers of children who had instances of sexual abuse in their household that was reported to the Department of Human Services between the years of 2013 and 2022. And it came up to 336 children, right? And this is annually. Well, this is for 2013 to 2022. And you sit down and you think to yourself, yeah. So you sit down and you think to yourself, like, oh wow, like the numbers ain't that bad considering,
No, they're
right?
bad.
Because that means you have like 50 or so cases a year, right? But the problem here is that per national statistic, which we fall under, only about 12% of cases of child sexual abuse is actually reported to the authorities. And I tried to do the math on that, but I failed math class. So Kyle, you know numbers again. If you could do the math for me while I talk. So
All right,
the number is 336, and that is only 12% of the larger number. I would love if you could figure out the larger number for me.
Mistaken. You're not that type of numbers guy.
I ain't that type of numbers, guy. Give me some dollars, put it in front of me. I count it.
Well, if anybody
let me go call my
chat,
baby mother. That's our accountant. Hold on.
thank you. If anybody,
That's still under 400.
No, so 336 is only 12% of cases.
Oh, it's only 12%.
That's only 12% of the cases that actually occurred, because nationally
88% less.
Yes. So 88% of the cases never actually come forward, right? And another statistic I'll give you guys, right? In our department, in our schools, the max number of children you can have in a classroom is 30 children. Statistically, about 1 in 7 girls are going to be sexually abused before they reach the age of 18. That means if your child class is a class of 30 children, statistically speaking, before your child graduates from high school, at least 4 girls in their class statistically may experience sexual abuse. For boys, it's 1 in 25 boys. Although I think personally that number is much higher because we have so much stigma around sexual abuse as it relates to boys, whether the perpetrator is women or men. That 2,800, I think it is.
Yeah, 2,800. Wow.
Okay.
That's a lot.
So it is a lot. And I feel like we have to bring the numbers in, because I think that's when people completely like start to get, right, that it's a serious situation that we have nationally, but also locally. It's a small community. And I think that it makes the conversation a lot more muddied. And so recently, right, we had a situation where they finally put out the report after the situation with Bruce Smith happened at Charlotte. They did a whole internal investigation to figure, they brought in a company to do a whole internal investigation to figure out, okay, like, what's the issue with the protocol, right? That this was able to happen. But it's not entirely about his case, but I think his case prompted this deeper dive, right? And so a few of the things that came forward that I could relate to as an educator is that in our school system, our teachers genuinely don't have an idea what a protocol is, right? But you may suspect that a child is being sexually abused, but there's no real training to first identify, for another to figure out what reporting looks like, who you're reporting to, but also there's a fear around wanting to remain anonymous because we live in a small community, and all of us have to deal with the notion of retribution, right? A lot of people are afraid of saying something, especially if the family is a prolific family or the family happens to be connected to a lot of unsavory, activity. Nobody wants to get caught up in that. And so you have a child that gets caught in the crosshairs of a teacher that may want to do something or may suspect something and don't necessarily feel comfortable going to a physical person because they're afraid their identity is going to be revealed. And then this child kind of gets caught in the crosshairs. And so outside of the school situation, it is my opinion that the biggest safeguard children have is their parents. And I think
Right.
that parents have to play a bigger role in their children's lives, ask their children pointed questions, not just how your day was, but what school, what who are your favorite teachers, what do you do during your lunchtime, like, because that's where the true information is. My father was a police in a police department for over 20 something years, and he was very, very careful about who he left my brother and I with. And I remember one day I was going to in school, and I was young. I had to have been 6 or 7. And a male teacher told me that I was cute. And so I thought, I didn't think nothing of it. And I was like, oh, my, thank you. And I remember I went home and I was talking to my brother, and he said something to me. And I was like, you're just jealous that Mr. Whoever called me cute and he didn't call you cute. And my father heard, and he was like, what happened? Who called you cute? And by the next day, my father was in the school. Are you getting a feedback?
Yeah, we go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's the planes flying over Sony house.
Oh, okay, very good.
All right,
Let me see.
By the next
there you
day, my father was in the school with my mother to complain to teacher. And, as a child, I remember thinking, like, this is, like, really intense.
Let
But,
me ask a question before you move forward.
sure.
Would you think it would have the same? I mean, if your father did right? Because you can't just brush it off, right?
Yeah.
But would you think it would have been the same energy if it was a female teacher that called you cute?
I don't think it would have been the same energy for sure. I think if it was an instance where it was a female teacher paying extra attention to my brother, or if it was a male teacher paying extra attention to my brother, that's something that my parents would have clocked. And especially, I think that my upbringing is a little bit more on the nuanced side because I had a father that was seeing the worst of humanity every day. He was hyper vigilant, and as a child, I did not understand. But I am incredibly grateful for it now because he saved me from what I think could have been a lot of like hurt and turmoil and abuse. But I also wanted to say I come from a two-parent household, and my parents were very active in my life, and my father was a police officer, and that did not deter grown men from wanting to have relationships with me as a child. And so I think sometimes when we think about these things, we think about the perfect victim, and we're always very quick to be like, oh, where's the father in the family? If the father was around, then, the situation could have been different. And it could have, because in some instances, right, a psychologist was doing interviews with predators, and she was asking them, what is your ideal child? And their answer was, my ideal child is a child who don't have a father in their life. And I will specifically select children whose mothers are single mothers and are overwhelmed, because it makes it easier for me to step in and there's an access to the child. Outside of that, though, there is no perfect victim, right? And I think that's what I really wanted to come here and say, is you could do everything possible to protect your child, and your child still end up in a situation where someone tries to take advantage of them or has taken advantage of them. And so you have to ask yourself, okay, I can't go to school with my children. I can't follow them on all of their extracurricular activities. And so what is my next plan of action? Let's say somebody does come and violate my child, right? I have to be able to have a relationship with my child in which they feel comfortable to come and be like, hey, like this happened to me. So that way you could catch it before it escalates into something that becomes more egregious. If you are fortunate enough to be able to even catch it by then, right? In a lot of these instances, you'll find that it's a slow grooming process where it'll be little things, it'll be little compliments, it'll be like, oh, here's a snack. And then over time, it's, give me your number, it's messaging you and being like, oh, you look so sad today. And over time, there's a development of trust that happens. And then the child becomes very susceptible, especially if that child don't have a good relationship with their parents. And so you have somebody reaching out to them, checking in on them, asking them questions, and they feel like somebody cares about them. And, they're able to have an easier way into this child's life. And so I really wanted to say that I think sometimes we get upset at parents because we're like, oh, is that you fault? You know, if you were watching your child. I am here to say as somebody whose
Let,
parents did
let me say
everything that they
this.
could. Yeah.
Let me say this. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, of
Like for
course.
me, my the basis of my decision making when it comes to things like this is probability. You're most likely to die in a car accident if you don't wear your seatbelt. That doesn't mean you won't die in a car accident.
Correct.
So I think that when men are saying, hey, look, you need to pay attention to your data, you need to make sure they ain't wearing provocative stuff. And then somebody say, well, you could get raped even if you don't wear provocative stuff. It's like, yeah, we know that. We just know the probability of, like what the study showed, the probability of you being a victim is very high
Yeah.
if you come from a single parent household. Now that Gabby could have definitely become a statistic for sure. There were many opportunities, as you stated, that didn't deter anyone,
Correct.
but the probability was a little bit lower because you had
Yes.
your two parents who were very active. Of course, one was a police officer. You know, your mom was very diligent.
Yeah.
So it made you very acute and aware about spaces for you to be in. And a lot of, like you said, and it's not, I'm not blaming the parents because look, if you have if you're a single mother, you're working really hard, you try to provide for your kids, you're not going to be as attentive to your child just based on the reality as somebody in a two-parent household. So it's not even her fault you're being raped. So I don't want anybody to even say, okay,
Yes.
it's your mother's fault just because she's a single parent.
Correct.
But I really wanted, and I'm glad you clarify all of it. I'm glad that you brought the statistics and you made sense of it all. But I really wanted to add in that I think sometimes people don't think of probabilities, right?
Yeah.
And when we're talking, we talk so absolute, especially men. You know, like
Ab-
if your mother were this and absolutely you wouldn't get raped. No, that's not true. The probability might be low, might be higher. The chances are higher, but it's no guarantee. There's no perfect victim, like you said. Like there's no guarantee. It's just chance. You know what I mean? Like today might be your day.
I also want to say that, and it's unfortunate that parents have to do this, but I will say that
Mhm.
it has helped me tremendously. Is vigilant parents create vigilant children. And so when I was young, and I remember my parents talking about this, they didn't believe in babies being naked on the beach. They didn't believe in little girls wearing two-piece on the beach. And it wasn't about me becoming a provocative person or anything like that. They didn't want people taking pictures of me. They didn't want people looking at me and seeing me dressed a certain kind of way and having lewd thoughts to even create the imagination. And they explained that to me, like all of the steps that my parents took to protect me. My parents explained to me something else that my father would do, and I know that this is again nuanced because he was a police officer, but we would be driving randomly, and all throughout my childhood, and we would pass a man, and he would be like, "What a man was wearing," and I would have no idea because as a child, you're not paying attention, and he would drill into me. That man had a tattoo. He had a shirt on his back. The shirt was navy blue. He had two wrist chain, and he's like, "And I arrested that man 2 years ago for XYZ," and you weren't paying attention. And so if somebody had taken you or we had get into a situation, you wouldn't be, because you're not paying attention, you are more susceptible. And he's right. When about a year ago on TikTok, there was a situation that was happening where women were walking through New York City and they were being punched. And a
Mhm.
lot of them could not identify their attacker. When they finally pick up that man and they asked that man, "How did you pick your victims?" He said, "I was looking for women that were in their phone, who
Mhm.
were not paying attention, who were not looking around and being observant. And those were the people that I picked." And that's how he was able to get away with it for so long. And I think that we have to raise our children to be vigilant and to pay attention and to almost expose them a little bit earlier than we would hope. So that way they are in a place where they see a predator come in when a predator come in. So when about a week ago, I shared something on my page where I was talking about how I had an internship opportunity and I was really excited. I wanted to go into a particular career. And I
Mhm.
had an opportunity when I was 16 to be able to sit in with somebody who was very well known for this particular career and get guidance. And as time went on, he would make comments to me that escalated to a place where I could no longer go back because I felt so uncomfortable. If I
Mhm.
didn't have a parent in my life who was there telling me, like, hey, You need to be mindful as a woman, as a little girl. These are the things that people are going to try to take advantage of you. I may not have been able to suss that out as early as I did to be able to monitor the behavior and know that it was escalating. And I think that we have to, as parents, and I'm not a parent yet, but we have to be willing to have uncomfortable conversations as early as we think our child is mentally ready to have it, because this is a way that you equip your child with knowledge and education. I watched a lot of serial killer documentaries growing up as a child, and my father never shielded it from me. And some people may be like, that's morbid and grotesque. But you know what that did is that prepared me to understand the like dangers of the world and the hardships of the world. And I know people want to, protect their kids and not instill fear in them, but you have to prepare your children for the world that they are going into. Though you can't prepare the world for your children. And so part of that is getting your children ready to face some of the hardest shit that they'll ever experience. And oftentimes that's protecting their sexuality.
You were saying about making children vigilant, and the thing that came to my mind is like, I'd be telling Amira, don't text and drive when you get a car. And all she do is watch me text and drive. So sometimes as parents, you should be telling our children one thing, and they just watching us do the total opposite. We telling them be vigilant, don't be in your phone, and they be in the airport like this. You know what I mean? So I really wanted to add that, even though it's not just about telling your children how to be vigilant, you also have to practice this vigilant to them so they could see it happening. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to just add that tidbit in what you're saying, and great information, because I'm over here learning. You know what I mean? I just figured out how to say vigilant properly.
And to what you're saying too, Redman, is it's just like there are instances where your children will fall into situations that are not healthy situations, and they will remember the guidance that you've given them. They may perceive that it may be perceived to you that they're brushing it off and they're not paying attention, right? But in an instance where your child is in danger, or where your child starts to feel in danger, one of the special things about children that I truly appreciate is that, and I think that it was God's way of protecting them, is children can feel in their energy when somebody around them is not good. And that takes us to the next part of children should be able to uphold their bodily autonomy and understand what that is at a very young age. Children should understand consent at a very young age. It's the old Caribbean way that, you see older people and, this is your auntie who ain't really your auntie. You need to give her a hug and all of this cordial stuff, regardless if the child is comfortable or not. When you have your child hugging everybody, what you're doing is you're breaking down their own internal trust system that they inherently come into the world with. And you are telling them that your guidance is more important than the inherent guidance they are feeling inside them. And sometimes children can see something that you can't, and they can't articulate it because it's a feeling. When your children say they don't want to hug somebody, they don't want to go by somebody, and even watching behavior changes. If you notice your child have a best friend and she's going over by her best friend's house, and all of a sudden there's a wall there, ask questions, because it may not have anything to do with an issue with her best friend. It could be somebody in the household. Or you leaving your child go over to somebody's house, and that somebody have a brother or uncle who house sitting down the street, but he coming up to feed the cats. And there are all of these roundabout ways that you may feel like you're doing all that you can, and in all regard you are, but you can't see beyond corners. And so it's about training your children from young to understand bodily autonomy and consent. So that way when they get a familiar feeling like something wrong with this person, they walk away and they trust the instinct without second guessing.
That's awesome. That's amazing. You speak so much.
You are hitting every nail on the head, Gabby. Like every nail. I'm sitting here listening to you, and everything you point on, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I do. Like when I tell people I choose my kids' friends, I have 3 girls, 13, 10, and 4. And I choose their friends, and I choose it for a reason. If they say, Mom, can this person sleep over? I have to meet that person's parents. I want to go to the home. Like I'm asking my daughter, do they have any brothers? Do they have any sisters? You know how many people, like I ask these questions, and I keep it 100% real with my girls. From the time they start talking, we start talking about, sensitive places. We're not no one should touch you here. No one should hold you by your hand. No one should, do this, do that. And and let me tell you, when my mom, growing up, my mom protected me with everything she had. Like Redman could tell you, I wasn't allowed to cross the street in Passing God and leave building 20. So when people ask me, right, so this person, you from ghettos, I kid you not, if you wasn't in my classroom, I don't know you, I don't know anybody, because my mom, like, she protected me with everything she had. And when I had my first daughter, my grandmother said to me, she said, Sony, this this baby, she's not your friend, and I want you to remember that you're her mother, and she has to respect you as such. And as you get older, she's going to grow, and you always need to remember she's not your friend. And that always stick with me. There's going to be times that I have to correct her and discipline her, and she's not going to like it, but I have to stick to that. And I mean, and you was talking about being vigilant, just helping her to, like, I don't allow her to walk in public and wear headphones. It drives me crazy, because I'm like, oh my gosh, if I'm not here, I need you to be aware of your surroundings. I need you to be looking at who's doing what and who's moving left and who's moving right, everything, but everything you said, like, you hit the nail on the head. I want my kids to fear me. I feel different about that, but I want them to fear me with love, right? I want them to know that if they see something or do something that they know they're not supposed to do, they know they have no business doing, I want them to fear me, because in the back of their minds, before they even make the decision, I want them to say, I ain't gonna even try it, because I know my mother crazy and she coming for me. Like, I want them to fear me with love, and still feel like, they could come and talk to me about anything. So, true story, I'm gonna put this out there. My daughter recently had a friend that would come, because and I feel like this is a sign, or some type of flag that something is happening, right? But she had a friend that would ask to come over and stay the night. And this was really my first experience with this, because I wouldn't allow other kids to come and stay the night. I wouldn't allow my kids to go and stay the night at other people's homes if I don't know them or if they're not family. And when she came, the first time she came and she stayed for 2 nights. I haven't heard from her mother, her father, grandparents, nobody. Somebody dropped her off. They didn't come in. They didn't say, like, hi, didn't meet me, anything. They literally just dropped her off. The second time she came over, which I don't even know why I allowed there to be a second time, but the second time they came over, she stayed an extra day. But she didn't bring any change of clothes. And I kept saying, it's time for you to go home. And she kept saying, no, I don't want to go home. I don't want to go home. There's nothing for me to do at home. The third time she came, she stayed for a week. And I came back from the grocery store one day, and I was like, why are you still here? And I said, you live here? She said, no. I said, well, you're not ready to go home? She said, no, I don't want to go home. And I had to sit back. But my response to her was, okay, well, since you've been here for a week, it's time for you to do chores, wash the dishes, sweep the floor, mop the floor. You know what I mean? And the kids were outside in the pool. I kid you not. The girl, she came out wearing my bathing suit. I'm like, why she didn't bring her own bathing suit? Everybody have a pool. My daughter was like, Mom, look, your swimsuit fits her perfect, right? And then they come to me and she said, Mom, my friend has a mark on her skin, and she got it from the rope in the pool. This is a true story, guys. And I was like, oh, let me see. I could go get the first aid kit. When I look at it, a big fucking hickey. Like, right there. Listen, like, I was like, what came out my mouth was, and I was probably wrong, was, oh my God, that's a hickey, all you get up. And then I'm like, oh no, I'm talking to a 13-year-old girl, right? So I'm like, are you sure? Like, that came from the rope in the pool? Like, a rope, when, like, I know what a hickey looks like, right? So to this day, like, my daughter can't be friends with the girl. It's not that something's wrong with her, but no, I'm concerned about what she's exposed to. I can't talk to the mom. I can't talk to the dad. I don't know what's going on. So part of me, like, from a mom's instinct, I want to bring her in closer to protect her. But the other part of me is like, okay, I have daughters that I need to protect. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna choose your friends. And no, I'm so like I'll be coming up with the craziest excuses. Look, I keep looking because the craziest excuses as to why they can't hang out, you know, or why they can't go places. But I say all of that to say you have to know who your kids are hanging out with. You have to know if they're going over to somebody's house. I don't care who it is, family, not family. You have to know where your kids are and be open with them and have real conversations with them, because today isn't what it used to be.
So
It's really not.
let me give you guys some statistics to piggyback off of what you're saying. Okay, so follow me with this. Nearly 70% of all sexual assault cases deal with children and are child sexual abuse cases. Okay, so of the 100% of cases that are reported, 70% of those include children. Okay, 40% of the 70% are children that are abusing children. And statistics show that if you have been abused or you have been raped, you are twice as likely to be abused again or raped again, right? Further than that, when they did research with child predators to figure out when, like, what their average was for abuse, children that began abusing other children as minors ended up abusing between 9 and 40 minors before they were caught while they were children, right? And so that is a very jarring statistic when you consider that, right? Because when we think about child abuse, we think about the abuse that an adult inflicts on a child. But when we really break down the statistics, so much of that abuse is actually at the hands of other children. And I think that this is really important because as we continue to navigate the complex waters of child sexual abuse, we have to come to face the absolute reality that our children are going to befriend children that have experienced abuse. And people who experience abuse may experience byproduct of that abuse, right? And so when we were talking a couple weeks ago about a conversation about the fast girls, the promiscuous girls, if we were to do a real study here to see how many young ladies who end up in a relationship with a grown man before the age of 18, I think we would find a lot of instances that a lot of these young ladies, in a lot of instances, not all, were victims of child sexual abuse before they got there, and it makes them more susceptible. And I think that this is really important because if we don't reframe the language we use about children who are abused, especially girl children, on these articles that come out after, about them being fast and a false right, then we're continuing to silence people that are victims. And we make it harder for other victims to come forward. One of the reasons why the child sexual abuse statistic and reporting is so low is not because a lot of parents don't know. It's that when parents find out, they have to consider the ramifications for their child in a small community. What that means for their reputation, how people are going to view them, how they're going to view themselves. Are they going to be teased in school? And that is another very real byproduct of deciding that you're going to go and contact the authorities. Everybody wants to say, not my child, I'd be calling the police, until you're in the situation and you have to ask yourself, is this going to damage my child further in a community that is not kind to victims, especially female victims, but also a community that likes to use labels around female sexuality. On the flip
Somebody
side,
getting feedback.
huh?
I was having some feedback from someone.
Oh,
Sorry.
So outside of that, right, we have the situation with little boys. When you ask boys how old they were when they lost their virginity and how old the person was that they lost their virginity to, in a lot of instances, unfortunately, in our Caribbean community, you'll find that a lot of our young boys lost their virginity to an older woman who was past the age of 18. And we have to start acknowledging that as rape, because that's what it is. And if we are going to acknowledge it as rape for girls, we have to acknowledge it as rape for boys. On top of that, I think that the stigma around male sexuality is just as damaging, because you had an instance where you had a track and field coach that was abusing children for years, and people suspected, and in some cases officials were told, and nothing was ever done. It's because we value male sexuality less than we value women. We value women innocence, or little girl innocence, more than we value boy innocence. And if we're going to get really real about this situation, and if we're going to get to a place where we remedy the problem, then we have to start valuing boy sexuality as much as we value girl sexuality.
Yeah, and you know, it's very, let me see, man. I mean, it's not popular to say what you just said. And I know we don't value it. You know what I'm saying? And what it does is it makes males more insensitive about females being abused, because in
Absolutely.
their minds it was like, okay, like when it will happen to me, nobody didn't say nothing, or how come when it happened to the boy, you had this one energy. And then some males end up being like, man, I don't care, cause they ain't stand up for me. You know what I mean? So, and I want to segue into this, and not to harp on the topic anymore, and it was discussed at real length, but of course, you know, Trigger made his comments, and you rebutted and said yours poignantly as well. And I wish you guys could have a conversation, and maybe that can happen in the
We,
future.
we did talk.
But
Me and
you
Trigger
did?
as
Okay,
friends. Yeah.
great,
Let everybody know
great,
that we're
great,
friends.
great, great. Yeah, because I don't want people to think that, like, because I disagree with Trigger on one thing and agree with him on another thing. That doesn't mean I don't like you. We just have a difference of opinion, and we
For sure.
see the world a little bit differently. And maybe you wish I see it one way, and and you see it the other way. But there was the conversation around putting blame on the younger person,
Hmm.
right? And I think, and I'm going to say this, I have two daughters. If my daughter hiding what she's doing, then you know what you're doing because you're hiding. And I'm not blaming you for your interactions with a male person, but I'm definitely going to hold you to some accountability. It's different when you're coerced, or you're like, oh, daddy had to talk to this person, blah 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 blah, and he have you in a pipe dream and you don't know what's going on. You just innocently getting tricked or duped.
Yeah.
Then look, you don't know what's going on. Let me deal with this person. I dealing with the person regardless whether you know what's going on or not. But I have to hold you accountable if you're hiding it and you're disguising it, because then you know what's wrong. And I think within that conversation, just the way, and we have to be better in the Virgin Islands about having these conversations. And that was Kyle's point. Hey, I want to do this because I want to show the community how to have the conversation. Instead of just wheeling these attacks and we hearing each other, and this person is this and this person is that. You know what I'm saying? So if you could expound for our audience, which most of them probably see it anyway, right? But we don't know. Some people see it, some people don't see it. Your thoughts on, as one commenter asked, about blaming the child or the young adult. I don't know if call it young adult because adult means you're older. I don't want to attach that word to a 17-year-old, because then you'll have in your mind that they bear some type of responsibility in the sense of their adulthood. So people under 17, 18 years of age, what's your take on that? Can you explain it to our audience, the conversation between you and Trigger, and how that resolved as well?
Yeah, of course. So Trigger and he actually reached out to me, which I was really happy about. Because I ain't trying to beef with nobody, like, and at the end of the day, I think oftentimes people's hearts are in the right place, and I think the
Hmm.
verbiage is rough. And as
Right,
I explained to Trigger, my hold back on messaging him privately was after he made his video, he doubled down on it when he was on the
hmm,
live with Winston. And so at
right,
that point, I feel like I think that would have been the time where you would understand the other perspective, which is I didn't come with a new perspective. my perspective was very similar to Winston Owen, which is that it's the way that it's being said, right? When what he said was, I believe you should hold the child with the same accountability as you hold the adult, right? And
Right.
what I took away from it, and what I think a lot of people took away from it, is he was referring to in the court of law, right? There should be something in place that the child should also have some sort of ramification. And
Right.
so that was an issue. The next thing that was an issue was he focused on when these girls coming home and they mother see them and they mother this and they mother that, and there was no accountability on the parents, right, the father in the situation. And so it felt like there was a dumping on the woman. Essentially, you're dumping on the little girl, you're dumping on the woman. And the problem here, right, is that when we talk about accountability, I think that in the same sentence as the accountability of the perpetrator, it creates the notion that the victim is also going to be held to a similar standard, right? And I think that the verbiage is dangerous because it keeps people who are more likely to be silent, right? The other problem with this is it's a slippery slope, because we like to say, oh, well, you know, she lied about her age, or she wanted it, she was the aggressor in a situation, she looked older than she presents, right? And my point is that we live in a small community, and information about anybody is accessible, whether you're using social media, whether you're asking a friend of a friend. And I also think that as an adult, if you're talking to somebody and between certain hours, they're seemingly unavailable every day, you know, like there are things that I think an adult should be able to discern. And if you as an adult can't discern that you're talking to a child and you talking about tax season and she can't relate because she never hold on a job, right? I think that as an adult, you should be able to discern that. And I think that we have to take responsibility when we're dating to be a lot more discerning about who we're giving to. And it's very hard for me to believe that a grown man would not be able to pick apart those details to be like, oh, wait, no, I think I think this is something else than what I initially stepped into it. And I think at that point they can stop the situation. But I think in a lot of regard, they continue. And I think that's the problem. And so when I spoke to Trigger, he reached out to me. It was a very good conversation. And I explained to him, hey, a lot of people online calling you names, and I don't think that you're any of the names. I think that your take, most of it was good. I think parents should be held accountable if they're pimping out their children, if they're making their little girls go out here and sleeping with grown men to pay bills. Absolutely, I am on board with you 100%. I also believe parents should be more vigilant because in a lot of ways, parents are not engaged in their children's lives. And when you're not engaged and present, somebody else takes up your space. And sometimes that person is the wolf in sheep's clothing. And so essentially we left the conversation with him saying, you know, like, I understand. And I asked him, I was like, do you want me to take down the video? I will put back up another video, but I won't reference your video. And I respected him a lot because he was like, no, I think you should leave your video up. And that meant a lot to me because I think that at that point, it was because he understood that the message was less to do with him and more to do with the broader belief system around how we talk about these cases and these little girls. There was a case in St. Croix about 2 years ago, and I remember this because it was so disgusting. It was a 13-year-old girl, and she had been abused by 3 different grown men. They were essentially passing this child around from man to man to man, right? And in the
I remember.
In the comments, I saw grown women talking about, oh, she felt false rape, she fast, she this, she that. And there was no empathy for a child, a 13-year-old child who probably just started her period the year before. And the fact that the type of coercion that had to happen, the type of parental absentee that had to happen, the possible abuse that must have happened prior to make her susceptible. There was no empathy, and we have to change that. Another reason why it's a slippery slope when we talk about accountability, if your child is lying to you, hold them accountable. Absolutely. Have the conversations. And also, at the bottom line of that, therapy is necessary. Not in a simple lie, oh, I'm going to the store and they end up at the movies. But if they lying to you continuously because they holding up a relationship with a grown man, it's time for therapy. right? And maybe it's family therapy that this becomes, or one-on-one therapy or whatever, but it's an opportunity for you to get your child help. And so we're talking about accountability through the lens of, hey, you were lying to me, this situation, came forward, but I want to understand how we got here. Like, how did this happen in a way that you didn't feel comfortable coming to me and telling me? And also, we need to go to therapy. That's the accountability that I am 100% a part of. And
Right.
another reason why this is important, right, and how to demonstrate how it's a slippery slope is when you look at a situation with Bruce Smith, he was a hall monitor that was going to children classrooms and calling them out of class. If we go down the slippery slope of, the little girls, them, they was the aggressors, they were responding back to the messages, then you in that same mindset could make the argument that the children knew that they were being pulled out of class to do this behavior. And then you have a very slippery slope where your victim is now being called a perpetrator when they are a victim. And I think that that's dangerous. And I don't want that rhetoric to be what we accept in our community.
One of the key things that, go ahead.
I still get a feedback or about not going to hear me?
Yeah.
No?
Go ahead.
All right.
No, you good. Go ahead, Carl. Yeah.
The reason why I kind of wanted to have this conversation, especially with Gabby and Sony, and is because there's not too many safe spaces for us to have discourse that we could hear everybody's takes and opinions and perspectives when it comes to a certain issue, especially sensitive issues. So what we see with Trigger felt however he feel, or maybe he was misinformed and then he spoke his mind. The people that was opposed to it, dragging. So my thing is like, maybe he just didn't know. Maybe he didn't understand. Maybe the people that he around don't think like some of the people that were dragging him. So maybe if he had a conversation with some people that didn't think like him, he might have been able to see or hear a different perspective and say, well, maybe I didn't think about that, or now I still feel this way I feel, right? So that's why I really, really wanted to have this conversation here, and a balanced conversation. So therefore, it's not about, I always say any predator preying on young girls need to go to jail, but all boys, any predator preying on minors need to go to jail. That's first and foremost, lock them up, get them out of here. But like I said before, every time we lock up one, two more pop up. So we can't just focus on just locking them up and then pulling our kids back out into the atmosphere with the other two that we know about popping up, right?
Yep.
So it's our job as a community to protect our kids from themselves. We have to protect our children from themselves. We see the dangers before they could see it, right? So going back to what we just spoke about as far as holding them accountable, what does that look like outside of the parenting aspect of it, right? Because they have some strained relationships between parents and children, where it's like, I don't care what a woman say, I'm gonna do what it is I want. So if the consequences of your mother being either upset with you or holding you accountable don't matter, and you still feel in your youth and your innocence where you're not fully developed to understand the consequences of your actions, you still gonna do what it is you want. And if your mother don't know, because she knows she need to report it, right? How can we hold? I don't even like the word accountable, because yes, they're victims, but what it is we could do if a 13-year-old go to Pueblo and rob food, rob candy, rob whatever, and he get catch, they're gonna hold him. They're gonna hold him because he broke the law, right? If two men fighting and somebody stab another man, two kids fighting, there's some type of accountability there somewhere. You're gonna go to jail. You do the wrong thing, you can go boys home, something. So I don't know what it is. Gabby, I like the therapy part of it. But how I want us to be more of a proactive community than a reactive community. Right? So how can we
Let me say this, Kye.
Go ahead, bro. Let me mute.
let me say this. I think one of the key things that Gabby said to me that stood out is when you piling on the mothers, that hit home for me, Gabby, because we don't put enough responsibility on as a father with daughters. Their mother can't tell them about boys better than I could tell them about boys. Their mother can't tell them about men and how men operate and how men see things and how men process things better than I. You know what I mean? So to pile on the mother, that hit home for me, and I appreciate you for putting that in my brain, right? And one of the best preventative measures a young lady could have, which Gabby had, is a father. And we don't have enough of those that are really in tune with their daughters. We have, but I don't see enough. Because if I go in the village and I see a young girl, I dress a certain way, provocative or any type of way, I don't never say who's her mother. I'd be like, where's your dad? Because your mother might be seeing you through her youthful eyes. Like, maybe this is how I had want to be, so I'm going to dress my daughter up in a way that I want to be. And that's innocent as well. People live vicariously through their children. But I always ask the question, where is your father? Because there's no way in the world use my daughter and you putting yourself in a position where people could have lewd thoughts about you and seeing a certain way in ways that you may not understand. Go ahead.
So you're right, absolutely right. It's a parental thing, mother, father, especially for these young girls and boys. But when the parents fail, where's the second line of defense? When the father ain't doing what he's supposed to do, when the father ain't present.
Kyle, I think this answers your question though, right? You're asking what's the second line of defense when the parents fail? This is why it's unfair to hold the child accountable in the way that I think a lot of people, getting beat or, restricted access to certain things and these very long-term punishments. Because oftentimes the children that are most susceptible are the children that have gaps in their upbringing. So you're punishing them a second time for not having a father in their life. You're punishing them a second time for having a mother that don't know how to communicate and has never communicated with them in an effective way. You're punishing them a second time for all of the issues that they are experiencing even systemically, right? And I think that's the problem. And again, this is why this conversation, especially when it comes to child sexual abuse, is so complex, because you have to be careful about the precedent that you set with something like this, because we already have a problem with victims coming forward. And to add on to what Redman was saying about the whole father situation, it is absolutely imperative, right, that we start to really push for households to be two-parent or parents that co-parent well, right? A reason, if we go back to my statistic, if one in 7 girls are being sexually abused, right? That was a statistic I gave about an hour ago, or I feel like an hour ago. And the other statistic I gave is that if you get sexually abused, you are more likely to get sexually abused again. Then what happens when those girls, right? We say for them, if your child class have 30 children, statistically for them girls are going to reach the age of 18 and have had been sexually abused. When they go into the world and they find partners, they stand another statistical likelihood that they may pick an abusive partner. Do you see how it's a slippery slope? So if you are a woman that has been raped before, you're more likely to be raped again. If you were sexually abused as a child, you're more likely to be sexually abused again, and you're more likely to pick an abusive partner. And if you have children, then that opens the door for your abusive partner to also abuse your children. And so this is why we go back to therapy, right? Your little daughter get caught up with a grown man. She needs therapy because that's deep healing that has to happen. There's a power imbalance that was taken advantage of. There was a manipulation that happened. There was a lot of coercion and grooming that happened that you have to now undo. And this is why it's so important, because if you don't heal that abuse from a child, you will go on to be an adult that may statistically pick abusers as your partner. And then there is where you leave the door open for your children. And so I hypothesize, if you end up getting sexually abused, it is also opening the door for your child to be sexually abused as well, right? Unless you go and do the healing and the deep-seated work that's necessary.
I love that. I love that. I love what you said so much. Because again, when I speak in and I saying I don't like the word accountability, but what is the preventative measures to make sure it don't happen again? Or you know, to deter wherever. It could be therapy. It could be government enforced therapy for that child. In the Caribbean, therapy isn't something that's, as far as I know, that's that easily accessible, you know, and it's not something that's common in our community. That's not something that we grew. I never had therapy. I don't know how much you had therapy growing up, but that's not a common thing. So when I ask the question, what can we do to try to prevent this on an even deeper level, deeper scale? It don't have to be toss him in jail. You know, it don't gotta be beat him. You know what I mean? But what is it? And I think you hit the nail on the head when you say therapy. You know, like, and I feel like it should be. I feel like it should be mandated, man. I feel like it shouldn't even be optional. I feel like that little girl suffers so much, and not providing her or him with that therapy that they need so that they could heal is an injustice to them as well. We can't just send them back home and then they become even more of a statistic. So that's the reason I asked the question. Because Gabby, for me, I know we don't have, there's instances where parents aren't being the best parent that it could be to the kids. So what is next? What do we do? We just be like, hey, you need to be a better parent, because look what happened to your child. What can we as a community do to safeguard these kids from the predators that's in our community?
I am be honest, is one, Sony, what I wanted to tell you when you were telling that story about our little girl is I highly suggest you go to the school, and as a parent, you make a report with the school, so that way the teacher can keep her eyes out. So there's that. And that's a part of my answer to you, is as a community, we not only need to be vigilant, but I also think we need to bring back shame in, right? Oftentimes we will know that our friend them in these relationships with these underage girls, and we don't speak up. And you know who I think actually holds the most power in this, especially when it's an instance where it's a female victim and a male, is our men in our community. We have to get to a place where our men specifically speak up about it, because men respect men in a way that women just don't garner that respect, unfortunately. Right? And so I think that we have to have more of these conversations. We have to be creating more statuses. When that situation with Bruce come out, it was literal crickets online. And one of the reasons why I personally felt uncomfortable doing a video is because I kept asking myself, you know, Gabby, am I re-victimizing the victims? Because these are little boys, and now they're grown men, right? And they're going off into the world, and I'm sure some of them never even came forward, right? It's just like, am I continuing to add to the trauma of it by creating a video on my page, right? And talking about it. And also, I run the risk of feeling like I am a part of the silent majority who doesn't want to speak up. And I think that it's again another slippery slope, and this is why this conversation is so complex, and this is why I think it's so important that verbiage be used.
You know, Gabby. Go ahead.
One more thing, and to add, because people just be like, oh, you know, I don't think it's a problem if they're like 16, 17, right? It's a 16, 17-year-old girl. The problem here is that if you're a 16 and 17-year-old girl, right? If we say, okay, we're not going to lock people up if you're 16, 17-year-old end up in a relationship with an older man because they're close to being of age, right? The slippery slope here is that now your 16, 17-year-old could end up in a relationship with her teacher, or she could end up in a relationship with her basketball coach, or her doctor that's given her her first pap smear at 16. She could end up in a relationship with him. And so again, it's a complex topic and it's a slippery slope, and we have to be mindful of precedent when we talk about these things, and when we want things to be pushed into motion. You don't leave school until you're 18 for most people. And so between 16 and 17, That means that anybody that goes to your school, the cook in the kitchen, the therapist, the counselor, by law could have a relationship with your child if we decide as a society that 16 and 17-year-olds are free game.
Right.
I want to say, I want to say this, right? Because I've been burned twice. When growing up, I feel like we were raised by a community. I had uncles, I had aunts, I had so much people around me to protect me. So if they see me doing something wrong, they didn't have to ask my mom and dad for permission to discipline me or correct me. Now, there's been a couple instances where I turned to a parent and I said, you allow your daughter to have a tattoo at 12, or you allow your daughter to wear, short shirts and, lashes and stuff at the age of 12. And the response to me was, don't tell me what my child should or shouldn't wear. Okay, don't tell me, and I've literally had this told to me, don't tell me how to raise my child. Another one that was truly told to me was, so you accusing my child of lying? And I think in that situation that happened, a couple months ago, is maybe why I felt burnt. Like I didn't, and I kid you not, I haven't met the parents for the young lady, but why I may have felt burnt, from speaking up and saying anything about it. Because, and I feel like in our community too, we have a lot of that, right? Don't tell me how to raise my child. Don't tell me that my child is lying. And so if I see, Redman, if I see your daughter doing something that she's not supposed to do, I want to be able to pull her up. Like, I literally want to be able to snatch her up and be like, come here, little girl. I know your father won't allow this. Go sit your little behind down. You understand what I'm saying? But I don't know that we're able to do that anymore like we was a long time ago. And maybe that's why, as adults, we see things and we're like, you know what? I'm going to just mind my business and turn an eye to it. Her mother should know better. Her mother know what she's doing. If her mother and her father ain't saying nothing about it, then who am I to speak up about it? And
So two things, Sony. You are absolutely correct. In one breath, you want me to mind my business. And then after the fact, when your child go through something, you talk on the body and say nothing. Right?
Right.
The next thing is, Gabby, what I wanted to tell you is this. A lot of us, a lot of men, see, so when you say men fear other men or worry about what other men say, they hide it good. And we don't only find out when they get locked up for it or they get accused of it. And then when they get accused of it, women will be like, yeah, I had no all along. So we'll be like, so why you ain't say nothing? If you know, why you ain't say nothing? So I could check him, or Kyle could check him, or we could be like, hey, big man, watch here. We really with none of that. You know what I'm saying? So it'll be like, how you know that it happening for years, but you ain't telling us nothing, and you just assuming that we know. Because with woman, let me tell you something, right? With woman, you know each other business a lot more than us men know each other business. Men don't really share each other business like you think we share each other business, Like, I don't know who my cousin girlfriend is. I just know I get girl checking for him, but I don't know. And I don't ask him no question like, oh yeah, so who Shadi is, and like, you know what I mean? And like, well, we don't do that. You doing your thing over there, I doing my thing over there. Now, if I happen to see something and I be like, hey, watch here, no big man, watch out, that girl, you know what I mean? And then even when we do that, we're going to turn around and get shamed, like, oh, you bad talking me, like, nah, like really try and put my homie up on game, like, watch yourself. You know what I'm saying? So we that just have that thing in our society where it is like, but if a woman know what's going on, bro, you need to come pull me to the side and be like, hey, your partner thinging up in. Because I going to pull him up and be like, hey, watch your be? Like, what really going on, my boy? Because I hearing this start. So you need really let me know what's going on. No, because I ain't done for that day. I ain't done for that day. But that make it look like, you know who these brothers, who? Say the name. Because we don't really want them around us. We don't need that type of association. So you need to be telling us. So we could then assume the role that you want us to assume and start shaming and checking them. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So to Sony's point, and I would say this is kind of connected to your point too, is I don't think you should approach a parent at all, especially if you don't know the parent and you guys don't have a relationship. And even then, it's finicky because you don't know if you approaching a parent puts that child at danger. You don't know if their parent is compliant in their abuse, and all you're doing is making the child a target in their own household. And so this is why I think the onus falls on you telling the school. You could call child welfare services, but I think in your instance, I would just call the school and be like, hey, my daughter get this little friend, I noticed this, I'm letting the school know. I would suggest you guys probably pay attention a little bit more to the child, see if the behavior is weird, maybe do a counseling session or whatever. That way you, Sony, have done all you could do to one, advocate for the child, two, protect the child. Anything outside of that is not your, it's not your right and it's not your role, right? You've done what you were supposed to do. And then as a parent now, you talk to your daughter and you're like, hey, I just want to explain to you what made me feel uncomfortable about your friend. So that way she also understands your sentiments. Redman, to your point, I completely understand. I think when I was in high school, I was working Fat Turtle. I was 17 years old. And one of the chefs, his name is Yadi, he was like a father to me, truly. And I remember one of the other chefs on the line one night had said something to me, and it was mildly inappropriate. It was something like, "Oh, you're looking good today," and Yadi put he spatula down on the stove, and turned to the man. I was just like, "My boy, not she. Please leave her alone. Children are sacred, and you don't tamper with children," in his Jamaican accent. And the man never bothered me again. And it was something so simple. All the man gave me a compliment, you know, but Yadi, a man, knew where the compliment was going, right? And in that little interaction, he saved me from what could have been a long litany of sexual harassment in the kitchen while I was a minor. And even after that, even when I had hit 18 and I was still working in the Fat Turtle kitchen, Yadi was always there to tell him, leave me alone, I'm still a child. Because in his eyes, as a 30, 40-year-old man, I was a child to him. And that was a small way that a man kept other men in check. So I didn't even have to do the dirty work of having to defend myself or, you know, make up the lies. Because as women, sometimes you gotta make up lies. Oh, I have a boyfriend or this, that, and the other. Because oftentimes men push and they push and they push until they break you down. Especially if you are a young woman, you are susceptible to being broken down after a certain amount of attempts. And having another man in the kitchen made me very comfortable to come to work. And nobody ever harassed me after Yadi, you know, basically it was just like, oh, you know, children is sacred, you leave them alone, right? But it's something as small as that. You hear a man make a off kilter top comment, you pull him up on it right away, right? Or even with the situation with Bruce, I didn't see no man talking about it online. Like that was a in your face situation. It was so, the article was shared a lot, but nobody was talking about how egregious it was. And there wasn't a lot of men speaking up about it. And I think that's important, especially in a situation where the victims were male victims. I think it would have helped those victims to have a man, an older man that they look up to, advocating for them online, especially since a lot of his victims are silent victims. People that you don't even know was victims. People who never even came forward. We don't even know how much children a man abused. And it would have been helpful, in my opinion, for those young men to see their peers and men older than them speak up and say that that was some real tragic shit. And it was trifling and it was terrible.
I got from a credible source that it's over 40 children.
Oh.
I 1,000% believe you. And the sad part about this is this man went away with people children. You know, and I think parents with their sons are very lackadaisical, where it's just like, oh, that's a little boy, nobody can trouble him. And so this man had literal unabated access to children and could go on trips with children and share hotel room with children. And nobody batted an eye, even when people suspected that there was foul play happening, right? And I think that, and I you know, I don't care what nobody say, the Department of Education, we still need to see the accountability. We can talk about accountability. Where's the accountability for the staff that knew, right? Where's the accountability for that? Because when they did that whole report that came out, Attorney General for the Virgin Islands, Ray, put out a statement saying, hey, the statute of limitations for the law to hold that person accountable who didn't do nothing for them children is out of my hands, but there's nothing that holds back the Department of Education from holding that person accountable. And we're still waiting for the accountability. The only reason why that report was released was because people were asking the governor every Monday during the press conference, where is the report that was completed about the situation with the schools and the investigation in the schools? Where is that report for the public to get? And it was after the governor got that inquiry that he was like, actually, yeah, where is the report? Because I don't know why it hasn't been released. And that was how we got the report. And I think that takes away the trust that the public has with the Department of Education. That's a problem. And the fact that there's been no recourse is a problem. And it's something that as a community we need to ask for. We need to kick up for. We should be talking about it nonstop. Where is the action from the Department of Education?
And Gabby, you hit a nail on the head when it comes to how vigilant we are, how much more vigilant we are when it comes to our young girls and our young boys. And boys, we're not as accustomed to boy victims as we are girl victims in our community, right? But still, in light of what's going on and in light of the whole Bruce situation, that should have been our wake-up call. That should have been our wake-up call to be like, yo, like, what? Like, this happened right under everybody's eyes, like, and everybody knows, like, how is this even possible? You know? So it brings me to that issue of we quicker worried about our daughters in certain spaces than our sons. I get 2 boys, you know, and when my son them leave the house, I more concerned about if somebody gonna try to take a chain, if somebody gonna try to rob a, if somebody gonna try do a physical harm as opposed to if some grown man gonna try to manipulate you and, you know, sexually assault you or whatever the case may be. So it's like, I just want to echo what it is you're saying for all of us men to really take into consideration when it comes to protecting our young boys. Because even when I started the conversation, I was like, yeah, we got to protect our young girls from the community. Boys are victims too, man. And as unfortunate as it is, and as, you know, as rough as it is, we have to protect our boys as well. You know, and one thing I also want to say, like, my circle, and Redman, you let me know too if you've ever experienced this. Like, I feel like once it's been shown, like once we see what's going on, like if I see a partner of mine trying to talk to some young girl, I can be like, big man, what you dealing with? That girl is like, what you think? Like, nah, you know?
The way to pull up because I tell them all the time, like, I don't want to make the news, you know. Like, I don't want you make the news and then use my partner. Like, I can't afford that. So just don't do that. Like, no. That's one thing. And then 2 is like, first of all, it's really not that hard to get a grown woman in the Virgin Islands. You know? Like, we on a carousel, for real. You going to get your turn. So, dealing with a minor, somebody under age, bro, it's just no. It's just a no. Like, I don't know how other way to say, like,
And
nah.
you know, and this again, and this is why I get so frustrated, because it's just like, Redman, how old you is?
40.
Okay, you're 40 years old. You see a good looking girl, right? And she telling you she's 19, and you're like, oh wow, okay, you know, she younger than what I usually go for or whatever. And you as a 40-year-old man talking to this girl for weeks or whatever, months, and she could keep your mental, like, going, you know, like she could keep you mentally interested in her with your conversation. It's impossible. A child has a limited experience, right? How it is you as a 40-year-old man can't disown you talking to somebody who obviously, you know, ain't lived life too close. Even if she 19,
No,
she
you
too
don't
close to
know.
the
You don't
line.
know, you know. You don't know,
You
you
have
know.
to
What we
know.
da do is we da run background checks. Hey, who you know this person?
Yes,
Like, who this is?
correct.
Like, who
You
she
have to
belong to? Like,
know.
what? Like, I need to make sure. You know, you can't like.
Exactly. You can't feign ignorance and something like that. And the fact that you have a minor that's keeping you mentally sustained indicates to me that you mentally are extremely immature and warped. And so that's the next part of the conversation is if you as a grown man kind of son, are you talking to a child? And further than that, you talking to this woman, perceived woman, and she's actually a child, but she's been able to finagle you and pull the wool over your eyes, then what does that say about your mental capacity? Like in terms of conversation, I am 30 years old and I have a hard time keeping up relevant conversation with like a 21-year-old. We're on a different station of life. We're doing different things. We've had different experiences. And so my relationship with them feels more mentorish than anything because they can't relate to the station of life I'm in. And I think that that's easily discernible in conversation. And that's the part of it. This whole feigning ignorance thing, I have a real problem with because I just can't imagine an adult with all of their mental faculties not being able to discern that this is a child or close to it.
Yeah, I don't go for it. I don't go for it. Well, she had looked 20 or she had looked. I don't care how you look. I don't, that part they ain't relevant to me. I don't buy none of that. You could find out in a small community. But back to like, for me, like I say, like, and you hit it on the head when you talk about accountability. For me, when I say holding my daughters accountable, it means that you are doing something wrong, and we're about to have a serious conversation with some ramifications behind of it. But also, what I learned tonight, and I appreciate Gabby, is the double punishment. Like that was a key thing that you told me tonight that now I'm going to put into my parenting skills. I can't double punish you. I need to figure out what's going on before I just get in my feelings and be like, oh yeah, well I'm going to do this and you can't do this and you can't do that. Something is going on that making you feel like you have to be entertained or entertain this person. So thank you for putting that in my brain. I really appreciate that because I have two girls and it's about that time, about to be 16 and 15. So I need to be able to use all the tools in the tool shed to get my point across, and punishment ain't always the way, you know what I mean? Because like Kyle say, your child could get numb to it and reject it and they'll be like, man, I ain't even, he gonna just bark and he gonna just take my phone or he gonna just not let me go no place and you know what I mean? So like you said, therapy doesn't always have to be you're going to see a therapist. Therapy could be how you have the conversation with your child, the conversation. I remember one time, so when you were like, hey, look, I need you to talk to Jasmine. You know what I mean? That's therapy too. Let me bring in my cousin who's a male that you close to and and Lee Dwayne explain to you what, you know what I mean, how this thing could really go. That's the village that we were raised in. That she was feeling comfortable to like, hey, you gotta talk to, because about this. Let me help him give you the male perspective of how this thing could make. Well, she wasn't doing anything with an older person. It was just that this was her first time interacting with boys. You know what I'm saying? So and young boys could manipulate young girls. Girls are susceptible to manipulation because they want to be liked. They want to be, you know what I mean? Like acknowledged. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes you'd be like, you're so beautiful. Why are you even worried? Like, how are you? How are you like? You know what I mean? I ask my daughter all the time, like, well, you're so pretty. Like, what are you struggling with? But I'm not a woman. She's a girl. So only she know what she's struggling with in her mind around other girls seeking approval. You know what I'm saying? So those conversations are very necessary.
Redman, to add to what you're saying, I think that another part of this and another reason why I think men need to take up space in the lives of their children is because I, as a child growing up, I didn't want for nothing, right? I mean, you have little things here and there that your parents didn't know to, but really and truly, my needs were met. And I had a father that like took our family out on dinners, and I had a father that like, picked me up from school, dropped me off to school, I had a father that was very present in my life. And so when men came around and were promising the glitz and the glamour and the whatever, it didn't move me in a way that would have moved somebody that had that gap in their life, because it was just like, it didn't feel like a big thing for me. And I think that when you have instances, we have 40% poverty rates in the Virgin Islands. When you have so many children coming from a poverty home and you have somebody that's like, hey, give me, this, that, and the other, and I will pay your bill, or I will give you the shoes that your mother says she couldn't afford, so you're wearing the old school shoes from last year. I feel like that's another reason why the accountability thing, right, is rough. Because if you have a child that's being promised, financial stability after coming from a home where they may have been food insecure, right? Where they may have had hand-me-down clothes from the thrift store, maybe they didn't get Christmas gifts. That's a big deal to them. That's important to them. That's a gap that they've missed. And so I think that that's another reason why it's so important for parents, but fathers, to take up space, especially for their daughters, because it's just like when my father doing it for me, a man coming and promising it don't mean nothing. Been there, done that. Like I already had a father that was in my life, that was taking care of me, that was keeping me protected. And I always tell people, like, when it comes to my husband, the very best thing about him, and the reason why I chose him as my life partner, is because he makes me feel physically safe, emotionally safe, and sexually safe. And that is something that I had as a child. And it's something that I highly value. To me, it is the most valuable trait I could ever have in a partner, is to make me feel safe, because I had that as a child, and it's very important to me. And I think that fathers being in their children's lives in a meaningful way is, you give your children the privilege, because unfortunately it's a privilege, of not being susceptible to these very tangible manipulations.
And since Dwayne mentioned that, like, that's with when I asked him to talk to my daughter, because she was just getting exposed to, I like this boy at school, and it was like driving me nuts. Redman could tell you, at that moment, what I did was I created a safer space for her, because, I've been married 15 years. So my kids have their dad in their life to show them everything. And he shows up for them. He protects them. He gets them whatever they need. And like you said, sometimes we may say no because we feel like it's not a need for them. But in creating a safer space, what I did was I gave her a list of men and women. And I said, listen, Redman, your uncles, these 3 guys, if you have, questions about, stuff like this, feel free to reach out to them. You could have the conversation with them. If you don't feel comfortable coming to me or your dad about it, and then I give her a list of her aunts and their phone numbers, and, 2 are my best friends. If you don't feel comfortable talking to me about something, talk to them. And my best friend have reached out to me and say, hey, Jasmine called me, and, she asked me about this. She asked me about that. I just wanted to let you know. And I'm like, okay. And I wouldn't have the conversation, because I felt like creating that safe space, for her to be able to have the conversation elsewhere with people that I trust, in my circle, is something that, could help as well.
Absolutely. And even, Redman, you to talk about your daughter or sister that's not your biological child, but how you to be talking to and stuff. Even that, right? You stepping in that way for Sony, you stepping in that way for that little girl, right? I don't know if that little girl might already have a father in her life, but you stepping in is another force. When we talk about proaction, that is another force of proaction that we put into place to protect our little girls, because now she's being protected by 2 men. You know what I'm saying? She's being loved by 2 men. She's seeing what that should look like, what that feels like. And I think that is where we that is where we begin, is we become more community oriented. And, there'll be people who will be like, not my child, don't talk to my child like that. No problem. Step off. But I don't mean that the next person with the next child isn't going to appreciate it. I think that there are a lot of mothers who want a good, healthy father figure for their daughter. And for whatever reason, they don't have access to that. And there are gaps in this child's life.
Yeah. Amazing conversation, man. And always amazing conversation. Gabrielle come in and just be a star.
She does.
Hey, listen, we're going to put you on time out for like 2 months because you come and stealing our show. No, man, we really appreciate it, Gabby. You always love talking to you. It's so poignant, you know what I'm saying, and very informative. You came with statistics, ready to rock and roll. And I speak highly of you all the time. Even when you say things I disagree, I'd be like, well, I have more things I agree with Gabrielle than stuff that I disagree with Gabrielle. So that's just one. But overall, you're just an amazing person, and we love having you on. So from us, I want to say thank you. I know Kyle have some more, that Sonny have some more as well. But for me personally, I love talking to you. I always learn something when I talk to you.
And like I
Thank
say,
you.
it's very these conversations are necessary, man. Because for me, I was struggling with what the heck, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? We as a doer, bro.
Right.
So like, if somebody ain't doing, I feel like we should be taking up the slack. Like, how can we help this person that's incompetent or not doing the best job that they should be doing to help them to be in a position to protect their kid? And you answer that for me, Gabby. You let me know therapy is the answer. You know.
So I
When I
want to. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, so when I have them other conversations with people I might not understand, because this ain't just about the four of us, and they get other people out there that might come to me with a different perspective. You check, and they ain't get access to Gabby to hear from Gabby. But now Gabby tell me what she tell me, so now I can be like, but bro, how about this? We can put a and offer them a different perspective. That's what creates a more balanced conversation, a more well-informed conversation. Make somebody give a well-informed into their mind. You know, go ahead, Sony.
No, I was just going to ask you, Gabby, if you know of any resources available that people could go talk to with their children, or maybe for their children, or refer their children to. And if not, maybe anyone in our viewing audience or listening audience could post in the chat where anyone could go to get more information about sexual abuse, sexual trafficking, and really how we could protect our children.
Yeah, so I mean, your first line of sight is if you, because I know that a lot of people don't have health insurance and don't have access, to money that therapy requires. There are organizations that we have locally to support. First and foremost, your child has a school counselor. In some cases, certain schools have several school counselors. Going to the school counselor and talking to them directly. Outside of that, there are other organizations. The Family Resource Center, I'm sure, has a listing of resources that you can pursue if your child has been a victim of child sexual abuse. If you're interested in reporting child sexual abuse, even if you want it to be anonymous, you could call the Department of Human Services and child protection specifically. And there are ways that you could just call a hotline. And you call a hotline and you say, hey, I worried about a neighbor child. I had a child crying all day. The parents don't seem to be home. They're a toddler, whatever the case is. Or, hey, I saw a really uncomfortable interaction between a father and a daughter the other day, and I'm leaving you guys know, so you could investigate. That way, we are constantly putting the bug in the air of the people that are responsible for supporting these children to be able to do those investigations. And then finally, I know, Redman, you had said something after the whole thing with Trigard happened. I thought it was really interesting. And you were talking about how if we're going to use the excuse that your brain don't fully develop until 26 for these young girls, then why aren't we more empathetic or sympathetic to the young men who get caught up in stealing from the store or whatever. And I wanted to say that while I don't have an answer to that, I think it's an excellent question. There is an organization called the Virgin Islands Justice Initiative. They are a nonprofit organization that helps young people expunge their records. So that way you don't have to continue to live with a record of a mistake you made as a child. They're also having their Harvest Fest at Megan's Bay so they could raise money so they can continue to do services for young people. And I highly suggest everybody go to that on Saturday with your family.
Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kai.
As always, thank you for coming. We love having you. This ain't the first and it won't be the
I'll be
last.
back again. I hope you guys have a great night and thank you.
Before you
Absolutely.
go, I need you to invite us on the Mystic podcast. Like, I want to be a guest.
So we got time on Mr.
We want to be on your platform, so we want to be guests too, Gabby. Like, you don't like us.
He wants to talk about Mr. Younger Peely. He want to give you insight.
Okay. I'm gonna try and walk it out. I think it's possible we're gonna have to change up a little bit of the format. But we'll talk about it on a sidebar.
Okay,
and we will go
cool.
from there. But yes, I would love to. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, good.
All right, guys, have a great.
Okay.
Love it.
All right, guys, that was amazing. We had another segment, but we can't touch it. We don't spend too much time, so we might have to do
Right.
two segments tonight because these things will be so good. We don't go so long. Nonetheless, man, the currency rundown. We know if it's gonna be every Thursday, but it's gonna be on a Thursday. But we're gonna try to stay up to date with all the current topics. We appreciate all you guys for tuning in, for rocking with us. Caribbean Currency. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, guys.
Subscribe.
Use the man, Sony. Use the woman, Kyle. We signing out. Appreciate
What
you
you
guys.
is? If I's a man and she's a woman, what are you?
Huh?
What are you? I's a man, she's a woman, then what you is?
Kyle.
He's an in-betweener.
Hey, Kyle.
He's an in-betweener.
Yeah, you peace. We out of here. Caribbean Currency.
He
Love